Channel Y. Channel Y. A South Asian Canadian channel.
And you're watching Channel Y.
The biggest South Asian media group. Y Media. Y Media. Y Media has newspaper, midweek, radio, South Asian Pulse.
Hi, I'm Amitabh Bachchan and you're listening to South Asian Pulse.
Hi, this is Amir Khan and you're listening to South Asian Pulse.
अब हर दिन सुने GTA का नंबर 1 रेडियो स्टेशन FM 91.9
Television. You are watching Channel Y. Channel Y.
Prime Minister, welcome. It's a pleasure to be back.
Online, SouthAsianDaily.com. The biggest South Asian media group. Y Media.
This part of the program is brought to you by Midweek Newspaper, published every Tuesday.
Hello and welcome to the Editor's Take. I am Ramona Singh, and in studio, I'm with the group editor of Y Media, Yudhvir Jaswal. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Ramona ji. I hope our viewers are doing great. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yes, you know, with spring around the corner, the first day of spring is actually tomorrow, and Beachbody is going to be an important thing. I think people want to get fit, want to exercise, and you know, this has come up a lot in terms of crash diets, fad diets. How do you get yourself into shape right away? So I want to know from you, are extreme diets a good thing or a bad thing?
I don't think so. Extreme diets are really a good thing for us. And even before I go any further, I would put a disclaimer here that I'm not a physician, I'm not at all a doctor. This is just the journalist in me, whatever articles I've read. So anything that you take a decision on your health, please do talk to your family doctor before you discuss anything. But talking about extreme diets, I've done that myself. I still remember about 8 years ago, I was around 226, and that's the time I decided, and actually it happened on a live radio show. One of our sponsors, he challenged each one of us. There was another co-host, and then this guy, he said, I'm going to lose 30 pounds in 3 months. And I was 226, and I read an article in a newspaper that yes, even if all my indicators are fine, still I am almost just 2 pounds from being obese, and being obese, that itself is a disease. So I told myself, okay, fine. I accepted the challenge on the live radio, and I said, okay, here we go. I'm going to lose 30 pounds. Interestingly, I lost more than 50 pounds. I think it was around 54 pounds. From 226, I brought it down to 200, 190. And by the time I brought it down to 180, that's the time I started thinking I wanted to stop it. But the metabolism, I think, it became so fast, I kept on losing weight. And I became really concerned. But here I am telling everyone, and yes, I've maintained my weight. Many people told me that you lost just 56 pounds in 3 months. You're going to gain them back probably in 6 months and a year time, or maybe in 2 years max. But there are so many other things that you lose the essential nutrients that you need. I think you lose that. Your metabolism is affected. It goes out of whack, and then so many other systems. I think you're giving your body a major shock. And since then, as much as everybody asks me, how would you lose, because all those who knows me, I always tell them, no, extreme diets are not at all good for you. You will lose, and I've now read a lot about this. What happens is that, yes, when you're doing all this with extreme diets, you might lose certain essential nutrients as well. Say, for example, vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, and certain other things which are vitamins which are soluble, fat soluble, and that only used when you have some sort of fat. Second thing, I did another major mistake. That was a major mistake, because yes, not only I did cut down on fat, but I did cut down on sugar as well. Not realizing I'm a journalist, I'm all the time thinking, I'm all the time talking, and my brain uses a lot of glucose, because that's the only food your brain utilizes. Of course, you need glucose and energy for your body functioning well as well. But I did cut, it was 0 sugar for that time. And I felt so very different during those 3 months, and even sometime later as well. So I've recommended everybody, please do not do these extreme diets. Have you tried any extreme diet in your life?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You
I have. Yeah,
Okay.
to reset your body, your metabolism. I actually did one of the most extreme ones where you don't consume any solid foods and you're doing liquids.
Okay.
And then you're taking bentonite clay and psyllium husk, and what that does is it actually extracts everything from your lining, your intestinal lining that has because your intestinal lining is not like smooth, it's actually in ripples, and
Yeah.
so a lot of things get stuck in there. And
Yeah.
you know, if you've taken antibiotics, if you haven't had, you know, a good diet, all those years, you know, they get stuck there. And so when you do one of those extreme cleanses and you're actually pulling things off the intestinal walls, you know, and it's a 7-day cleanse, and so I've done that, and you'd have to up your vitamins. Like, you cannot go without your vitamin C and your fish oils and all this other stuff that you have to do to balance it out. But yeah, I mean, it kickstarts everything, but absolutely, because you're now cutting out the sugars and you're cutting out, you know, all this other stuff that really make you lightheaded and a little bit dizzy until your body adjusts. But, you know, a lot of people do that when the season changes, and so that's part of the thing, because now, you know, then if you, because it's usually you want to do something quick and then go into a routine, right? And so now it's proven to be a lot more dangerous, as we're seeing a lot younger people who are also really healthy, and some of the athletes in the past little while from like 35 to 50 who are dying of heart attack. Do you think there's any correlation there between, you know, getting ready for a season and what's happened that we're seeing in the headlines?
Yeah, as you were just mentioning what we're seeing in the headlines, I don't want to correlate that. Like we saw Shane Warne, he was fit, an athlete, he's 52, he wasn't in the best of his shape, but he wasn't obese either. I mean, at 52, and I don't want to correlate both of them, that yes, this is what happened to Shane Warne because of this issue, or Saurav Ganguly, he's had his heart problems recently. So I don't want to correlate any of these things with extreme diets, because then that will lead to speculation, and that's one thing I will tend not to do. But yes, at this point we need to ask ourselves, are extreme diets good or bad for us? And you just mentioned, you know, that yes, the beach bodies and suddenly trying to fit in certain sort of clothing right before your wedding is approaching or a big event is approaching, you try to get fit in with some dress, or even for athletes for that matter. And in this case, yes, Shane Warne did a 14-day extreme diet course right before, and he put a picture on the net as well. I put a picture where he said, okay, this was 28th March and we lost him on 28th Feb, sorry, and we lost him on 4th of March. And you know, being a sports fan, a cricket lover, and I still remember I was in Australia, you know, and at the Melbourne cricket ground outside, I took a picture with this guy, and I've followed him ever since he started cricket. I've followed him, watch his international cricket, Ashes. He played against India. He played in the IPL. So I've been watching him and following him as a player, as a coach, and of course his other things as well, whether it was Elizabeth Hurley or so many other mega stars. So I've been following him very closely, and suddenly we get this shocking news. So I wanted to dig deep into it. How could this happen to Shane Warne? And especially when he was in his almost, you know, the shred body sort of thing, the beach body style. He put his picture on 28th Feb, and here he is on 4th March. He's gone. So I'm not trying to link anything, but this is a question. And then you see many athletes also, as you were just mentioning the headlines, like Christian Eriksen. He just collapsed during a soccer match. Now this young guy, he's in 20s, you know, this young guy in his 20s, he's playing a soccer match, and he collapses right there during the Euro Cup. He's a leading Danish soccer star. How could this happen? And there are many other athletes who collapse. So I think we'll talk about the extreme training as well as extreme training good for all. But I think extreme diets, this is what my opinion is. Again, I'm not a physician or a doctor, but I think we should tend to be very, very careful with extreme diets. Have you done it just once, or what has been your experience with extreme diets?
No, I've done it a few times, and yeah, you have the possibility of losing muscle mass if you don't do it properly, and that's why you shouldn't do it for a long term. Like 14 days is very extreme, right? I've done like 3 days to 5 days to 7 days, and it jumpstarts things, but what you do afterwards and whether you go the opposite way and you crash, so which is what the crash that comes with it, that's very difficult, of course. But you also play high intensity sports, right? You've lost the weight and now you're maintaining the weight, but you're also very active. So what are your thoughts on high intensity sport, and what is a good way of staying healthy and physically fit but not taking it so overboard?
Yeah, you're right. Actually, just as we're talking about these extreme diets, I think moderation is the key. Balance is the key. But the interesting part is very rarely we hit that right balance, and certain times we don't even know what's the right balance, how do we do things in moderation. What is that moderation thing? Talking about the high intensity, yes, I do play sports, and especially when I go for my badminton games in the evenings, I play 3 times a week. Of course, not doing anything is not the answer. If you're sitting idle, you're not exercising well, yes, that will affect your health in long term, that's for sure. But the question that we're trying to address today is here, sitting idle, not doing anything, your arteries could get clogged up and you could have heart attacks, you could have other so many serious health issues, cholesterol or diabetes or so many other things. But here we are seeing, whether it is Christian Eriksen, whether it's Saurav Ganguly or so many other athletes who've collapsed, or we lost Shane Warne right now. So we were talking about the extreme high intensity training as well. I think here we have certain numbers. One of the keys is that you need to make sure that you are in your target heart rate. And what's the max that you can achieve? The key to that is 220 minus your age. So say for example, if you're 20 years old, your maximum heart rate that you should be going is less than 200 if you're 20 years old. Usually our heart rate is like, okay, if we check your and mine, of course we're fit right now, so yours would be somewhere in between 60 to 100. Your heart rate, that would be your heart rate right now. And that will be mine heart rate if I check mine right now. So it'll be somewhere in between 60 to 100 as we're sitting idle right now. We're not doing anything. So as we start moving, our heart rate starts moving up. It'll go to 110, 120, 130. But what is the limit? That limit is going to be dangerous for us. So 220 minus your age. If you're 30 years old, your maximum target heart rate should not exceed 190. If you're 40 years old, your maximum heart rate should not exceed 180 in any case. Like we all are guilty of this thing. Most of us are actually guilty of this thing, and especially when we are playing sports. Like I didn't have this beautiful watch earlier, and I'd like to thank you and all our Y Media family members who've gifted me this watch. And one of the interesting things I saw with this watch was that yes, it does measure my heart rate on a very regular basis. So my target heart rate should be actually, and this is what most of us should be aiming, somewhere in between 60 to 80% of your maximum target heart rate. So this is your maximum limit, but most of the time when you're playing or you're doing any exercise or any workout, it should be between 60 to 80, and that for a fit person. Just in case you have any health issues, any health conditions, whether it's heart, diabetes or anything, of course your heart rate has to come even lower. So please, once again, I'm putting out this disclaimer once again, do consult your family doctor before making any changes to your lifestyle. Do consult your family doctor. But now what happens is when you're playing a sport, unless you don't have a strap tied to your chest or a very high-tech strap tied to your chest, or you have a watch which is telling your heart rate, what happens is you tend to go overboard, because here you're playing a sport. Say for instance, if you're playing a soccer, you keep on training yourself hard. Not only keep on training yourself hard, you keep on pushing yourself very, very hard. And whether you're playing badminton or cricket or soccer or any high intensity sport, this could happen to you. So we got to be very careful. That's all we're suggesting. The balanced approach, the approach in moderation, that is the key.
Absolutely. And so, since we've has been seeing this in the headlines with athletes and people we know, dying from a very young age, from like 35 to 55 from heart attack, which you wouldn't, before you'd always see that in older ages, people. And of course, if they had a history in their family, of heart disease and cholesterol and diabetes. And so what is your final advice for anybody who, has a family history, but maybe perhaps doesn't know what to do? Of course, consult your physician, but somebody who's very active in a sports life, what's that way of getting into it for people who are not as active?
I think the key is moderation. The key is find a balanced approach in your lifestyle. And of course, these are few factors as we discussed. Diet is a very important component. Extreme, as we already said, that extreme diets could do more harm than good. We don't have a conclusive evidence, because studies after studies we see so many different things. But I think if we're doing things in moderation, because we have our liver for that. We say cleansing is very important, but as much as cleansing is important, fasting might help you, but fasting too long on a very lengthy periods, you have to see. And very importantly, one size doesn't fit all.
Absolutely doesn't.
If something suits you, doesn't mean that'll suit me as well. I got to go ahead.
Yeah, unfortunately, most of the medical science that there is on when it comes to intermittent fasting, when it comes to keto diet, a lot of it was done on male subjects. So women are going through a difficult time in terms of understanding what to do for their bodies, because there's not actually a lot of scientific research. This is very a new thing that now, you know, when it comes to healthcare providers and medical companies and pharmaceuticals, that they're actually doing testing on women to see how a woman's body works with some of these types of diets and supplements and whatnot. And I know a girl who did the keto diet, and she said it just threw off her hormones because, you know, a female cycle goes through its 4 phases, you know, through her menstrual cycle and through those phases every month. And with each phase, you need different nutrients that your body is craving, some more than others. And that's why sometimes you do a high intensity workout in certain weeks versus, you know, a lower one, because your body has different needs. And that also includes your supplements. And you can actually now get supplements that meet the needs of those 4 phases. And so this is, I was surprised to learn that most of our research and science and data is on the male body.
Not only that, thanks you brought it up, not only that, but there are so many other factors as well. First of all, the sample size isn't that huge. That's another issue with whether it's keto diet. I'm not specifically talking about keto diet, but so many other extreme diet courses. The sample size is not huge. Second, many times it's not peer reviewed. That's another issue. Third, okay, there's a different thing that, okay, you could be going to a gym, doing a few exercises, and then after a few training sessions or whatever thing, you can start claiming yourself to be a trainer, but then have you done in-depth research of the diet that you're going to recommend anybody? What sort of diet? Even for that matter, a protein powder, how much you should take. So if, say for instance, a female would need 46 gram of proteins every day, a male could need 56. So, and that you can get from eggs, that you can get from almonds, that you can get from soya chaps, so many other things that you can certainly get. So even with the diet thing, like one of the things we won't, in the rest of time, we may not go in that much of detail, like desi ghee. You know, this is one thing that our ancestors has been using, and recently it was recommended, no, it's not good, and then here we come back again that yes, desi ghee is good for as much as refined oil or other different forms of oils. Saturated oils may not be good for us, but desi ghee has been existent forever. I have been using it for so many years. Our parents, our ancestors, they all used it, and now the science is telling yes, it is good for us. Like our breakfast used to be very healthy at a time, but then came the era of cornflakes and all these things. Okay, this is healthy, but now we know those have so many other things, whether the preservatives, whether the sugary content, or so many other things. But our initial diet, the home cooked food with the desi ghee on it, was considered one of the best. So I think whether it's the overrated superfoods, whether it's the overrated extreme diets, or overrated high intensity exercises, I think we're just trying to share the flip side. My sum up note would be there are so many other factors associated with it. Have a nice diet, have a balanced diet, and consult with your doctor maybe 4 or 5 times a week. High intensity exercise may not be that good for you. Manage your stress very well, sleep very well, because as much as we train ourselves, our body loses its immunity. It's an open window. If we are doing a high intensity exercise for the next 48 to 72 hours, it could be an open window. Our immune system could actually go down. So rest is very important. Sleep is very important. Do everything in moderation. Hope we are able to live a balanced life.
Yes, thank you. That's all the time we have for the editor's take for this week. Until next week, we'll be back with Yudhvir Jaswal, the group editor. Stay safe and take care.